Okay, hello guys, what's going on? Welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be traditionally inking this Conan the Barbarian sketch with traditional India ink, my brushes, and also a couple of fine liners just to do some hatching because sadly I don't have my quills on me right now. I'll definitely do a video on quills and dip pens really soon though. So yeah, I'm going to give you all the tips, all the tricks, all the insights you're gonna need to ink just like this. Let's not waste any more of your precious time and attention you're giving me and get straight into the process. Let's go. Yeah, so to start off this piece, I just take my fine liner to kind of do a bit of a warm-up because I'm going to be relying very heavily on my brushes. I first plan off a couple of the areas where I'm going to black stuff out completely just to give me some confidence when moving on to my brush. I also need this fine liner because I don't have my dip pens to do a bit of the more precise stuff. It's not the most practical, but it actually worked pretty well. And also the first tip that I'm going to give you right here is to block out which tools you're going to use. What I mean by that is when you're using one tool, like I was doing right there with the fine liner, you might as well do everything you can do with it so far before moving on to the next. This will save a bunch of time and a bunch of frustration. Like right here, I'm doing the sword and all of the straight parts that I'm going to do with the ruler because I was using this tool anyways. Okay, so after testing out the brush and exactly how the stroke is going to turn out on a separate piece of paper, that's a good thing you could do too if you're not feeling confident with brushes. I move on to start with the face. I really like to start inking with the face because, well, I want this piece to be a little bit more on the suggestive side, like really indicate the face by the shadows it makes. I think it turned out pretty well. Right here, I'm inking the arm, and he's supposed to be ridiculously muscular because if you have seen like the comic books or maybe the 1982 film, I think it's from 1982, well, he's absolutely huge. It's Conan after all. Yeah, now I'm just blacking out the shadows on the shirt thing and on his big belt. I think the different textures I managed to get are really cool, especially on his other forearm that you can kind of see the texture of in the background even though it's completely blacked out. The fur thing he's got in his forearms really makes sort of the texturing capabilities of the ink come true. You can really do a lot of things. Like on the last fur part, you can really get so many different textures when you get good at inks. This is so much fun just to experiment around with the brushes. Right here you can see a bit of a hesitation before moving on to the legs before these kind of lines. Well, usually I would do them with my dip pens, but right there I did them with my brushes, and they're much thicker than what I would have usually gotten, and I have less control over them, but I actually really like the outcome. A bit more suggestive, a bit more energetic, and that's really cool. Here I just black out a couple of like rocks thing foreground elements, and I'm trying to do a couple of arrows, but because I don't have my quills and I have to do very thick strokes, they actually end up looking more like I don't know, grass, but it doesn't really matter because now I'm doing the blood on Conan's sword. I called this piece Victory because to me it's supposed to convey like that strong feeling of having a tough fight and coming out on top, which I think Conan the Barbarian is a really cool example of it, just as the different representation in cinema and comic books. That pose, the blood on the sword, everything, I think that conveys it really well. And now I move on back to my fine liner to do a bit of hatching. I didn't do that before going with the solid black areas because I think hatching after doing that makes much more sense to me in my process to sort of gradient it out in the white of the paper. I just feel a lot more confident doing this in this order, even though I think a lot of artists actually do it the opposite way. They hatch and then they see which areas are really dark and they black them out. That's a bit weird. Just experiment around and see what works best for you. That's the best tip I can give you in this regard. And also don't cross your hatches everywhere. You need to have some parts that are lighter than others for the dark parts to actually pop. That's why I'm going pretty minimal on the hatching on the skin, except on the legs that are further away from the light that is coming from on top on the left. I also do a little bit of hatching to texture the sword. Now that I'm using my fine liner, I'll also, just like in the first tip I gave you, do the bit of a like small sword thing that's in the foreground. Kind of like if it's a battle just happened, and I move on to the eagle in the background. I think this is a really cool element. It turned out really well when fully inked. And right here, I'm just blocking out the shapes that I'm going to completely black out because, like, I have already my fine liner in hand, so I might as well do it before moving on to my brush, like I'm doing right here. I'm trying to leave some areas white to indicate the shape of the quills of the bird, because, well, I do have some white out, I actually broke it, so I have to put it on the side, take a brush, and then apply it, which is a bit annoying, so I'm definitely going to do it. I'm just trying to minimize the use that we have of it. Defining a bit more the textures everywhere on the piece, and also on the bottom that you sadly cannot see right now, because I always move my canvas all over the place, and I do a couple of grassy bits that makes the arrows look even more like grass, but that is not that much of a problem because you know they're arrows now that I told you. And I just defined a bit more the very deep black tones, add an arrow, and just to make the piece look more complete. And add a couple of hair too to really give it that windy energy that I'm looking for. I also add a couple of details around the sword. Another tip, do not hesitate to go further from your sketch, because, okay, this sketch was very detailed, I think a little too much. Don't over detail your sketch when you're inking, let your inks do the job. Like I'm doing right now with the grayscaling. This is just mixing a bit of water with the ink to get the tone that you want, and get the grays wherever the fuck I want them. I think I'm gonna get some on the shirt. I'm not gonna get some on the fur he's wearing, like around his legs and things. And a little bit on the skin, but just a very minimal use. This can really go a long way into your value work for the composition of the image and look really, really good. I also add a couple of background cloudy elements. I think they look really, really nice. And just center your attention back on the character, which is the goal here. The main thing of this piece is the victorious character. This is what is going to convey the victorious feeling that I'm really looking for. I do a couple of wet on wet techniques there because I think they look pretty damn cool. The little bleeds there, they're pretty nice. And just finishing off my value work by getting a very light gray on his hair. Right here, see, this is my broken whiteout. I could have used it as if it wasn't broken a bit later on, but right now I'm going with a brush to put a little bit of white on his eyes and on other areas, like on the eagle, on his sword, and fixing up a couple of mistakes, and also doing a couple of others wet on wet techniques on the clouds. I think they look actually pretty good. Gives a nice texture to the thing. Yeah, so detailing the texture a little bit more, this is another trick you can use with white. You use it on the black areas on the same way you use ink on the white areas to get the texture that you want. This is a really cool thing. However, this little effect I got on the eagle, I didn't end up liking, so I just covered it in ink. White and black are really complementary, and right here I just add a couple of final windy effect to get that current vibe for the final reveal. There it is, guys. The final result. There it is. That's really, really nice. I really like how this turned out, even though I didn't have my dip pens. If you like the style too of this illustration and of any of these guys, you can actually get some of this done by myself, because I'm gonna start offering commissions of inked artworks like these ones. For some reason, when I first started commissions, I went on Fiverr, and I didn't even offer just ink illustration, even though it's what I love doing because I felt insecure about it for some fucking reason. I don't really know why. But now I actually thought, like, okay, that was a failure. Fiverr just wasn't for me. I'm gonna start doing my thing and open my own website to sell commissions of stuff like this. It's not out yet at the time I recorded this video, but if it is by the time I post it, it will be the top link in the description. Check it out. And you can get, I don't know, a portrait of you and of a friend or a friend for a gift or whatever it is, really. So anyways, thanks very much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.